so the whole writing of a book was very, was strange. I was like a fish out of water. I've always liked to write. My mother has a PhD in English language and linguistics, and so reading and writing have always been part of my childhood, and I've always written and enjoyed that, and launched magazines in university and all the rest. But this was a huge undertaking, and it's the hardest thing I've ever done. I mean, quite frankly, it's the hardest thing I've ever done, but I was so committed to telling their stories, and so I just pushed through. And there were periods where I slept, 30, 40 minutes because I was trying to hit a deadline, and I'd just sleep long enough to wake up. And to stay awake, I'd eat, and I'd sleep, and I'd eat, and I'd sleep, and I'd eat, and then I'd write. It was all just quite messy by the end. But for them, it was worth it. So I'm a big fan of Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, people who've written about women and have put women at the center of their stories, really near and dear to my heart. I grew up in Sierra Leone, which didn't have many good libraries, but did have one central library that I did go to and get books from. And growing up, it was like, the famous five and, all the kind of thing that we were taking at that age. But I went to Trinity, Cambridge, which has this amazing library, the Wren Library, built by Sir Christopher Wren, and it's an incredibly beautiful space. And so I've always been very, very lucky to be able to spend time in libraries and just absorb dip into lots of different things, And we had a library at home, actually, because my father was a lawyer, and my mother had so many books. So I've always been surrounded by books and always enjoyed being in that space, that closed-off space. I think that's a really important point, and not to get political, but I think that when I look at some of the rhetoric that's happening right now in this country, and some of the kind of us versus them, and some of the things that are being said about other parts of the world, I think if we read more, and we were open to different sources of reading, I think we'd do so much better in terms of our understanding of where we are, And it saddens me to hear all this talk of division and barriers and separation. And really, I think books are a pathway through. And I hope that young people will read this. I hope older people will read it. And I hope people will understand the important role that America stands to play in the world, but also just the resilience of other parts of the world.